I wanted to pick a topic that relates to Yeshiva, and not only what we receive from Yeshiva, but also what Yeshiva sort of gives. I'll begin with something early in Jewish history. What was the first blessing that Avram Avinu received? Anyone remember? I'll take, that was right, wrong answer. Remember that answer. Someone said, that's Halagoy Gadol. That's not a blessing, that's a purpose. God says, begin a journey. Someone came to you and said, begin a journey, and you fell for it. Well, and you believe it's God. What would the next question be? It could be, what's in it for me? Or it could be, what's the purpose of the journey? You understand the two ways to look at that? So God tells Avram, Lech Lecha. I expect something to come next. The next thing could be the purpose of the journey or the reward for the journey. If you think like a 5-year-old, what's in it for me? That's Halagoy Gadol. If it's about what's the purpose of the journey, it's something for mankind. And therefore, that's Halagoy Gadol. I need a nation to work for me. Being the nation is not the goal. Being the nation is the vehicle. And this, I call it the difference between racism and Judaism. I'll give you an example. It's all through Parshanut. Zot HaBracha. Av chovev amim, kol kedashav yadecha. Who are the amim? How could Moshe say chovev amim if amim is referring to the other nations? Understand? So therefore, what do Parshanim say? Who are the amim? The 12 tribes. And who's kol kedashav? Shevet Levi. So the more the Parshanim were much more universal. What would they say? Even though God cares about all the nations, He picked us. So Chavev Amin is all the nations, the 70, and who's called Kedushav is Am Yisrael. Look at the Parshanim if you're bored on during Hakafot. You'll see. But you understand what's going to happen? I brought that example because it's perfect for the Hashkafa of the Yeshiva. Something we received both from Rabbi Mikam and Rabbi Lechem, that even though we're focusing on ourselves and our own Judaism, you can't do that without looking outside as well. It's not only about us. And the blessing Avram gets afterwards is to be a blessing. V'hiyeh bracha. And being a blessing is not what you receive, it's what you give. And that's the deeper blessing of the Torah. Now, because it's not just Zot HaBracha coming up, it's also Simchat Torah, I wanted to pick a topic called Tzelem Elokim from the beginning of Bereshit. And usually there's never time to study Parshat Bereshit because you're so busy with Yom Tov. Before you turn around, it's Parshat Noach. I'll begin with something you're familiar with, and I want to show you and try and appreciate why Tzelem Elokim is such a central theme from the beginning of Chumash. As almost all Parshanim point out, the first 11 chapters is like a platform from which Chumash launches all of its ideas. You find traces of things in the first 11 chapters all through Chumash. I'll just give a fun example. It has to do with Moshe Rabbeinu, who's going to pass away in the Zot HaBracha. In the Zot HaBracha, in Moshe Rabbeinu's life, he's born and saved by a teva. His big event is Har Sinai with his 40 days and 40 nights. He gets an offer, let me kill everyone else and make you the only one. He's Matzachem Ene Hashem. You catch on yet? It's not the same story. You can't miss that the story of the flood and Noach is setting the stage for Har Sinai. Without going into the meaning of it, I'm just bringing an example that the stories in the beginning of Bereshit are a platform through which Chumash launches all of its ideas. Now, I want to take the idea from Parag Aleph from Bereshit and do something nice and simple. God likes talking to himself in the very beginning of Chumash, doesn't he? From what pasuk? When's the first time God talks to himself? No. That's talking to his board members. That's the first time he talks to he's not in charge anymore. By pasuk Gimel, Vayomer Limhi Or, Vayi Or. And then every day of creation begins with Vayomer Elohim. Now, there's a good reason why God's talking to himself.
Nobody's saying.
But the question is, why is he talking at all? It's called anthropomorphism, something like that. It means we need to describe God in human terms so that we can appreciate it. But if you notice, there's a format in every day of creation, which is real simple. Every day of creation begins with a command, correct? Followed by a command. After the command is always the execution. God says to do something, and it happens. Who does it? No, it gets done. Sometimes Vayichen. I guess God's behind it. But it's called Menachem. We'll see later on. You think about doing something and then you do it. That's why we have Shemon Esrei. That was it. Rav Amital always said, if you want to know what you're really thinking about, when Shemon Esrei is over, ask yourself, what was your mind wandering about? And then you find out what's really on your mind. He had such great insights on life. How do you remember that story? Now, it's called truisms, I think. Back to creation. So every day of creation begins with a command, followed by a execution, and usually a good report card. Either it's a good, it's like a pass, it's a pass and no fail system. Either a pass or no, or just not. It's always stove. Something extra, giving out a name, giving out a purpose, and then Vayer Vayboker. Got that? Now, if I want to make a quick list, you can look on the source sheet if you want. What is it that God makes every day? So what did God make on day one? How are we going to figure it out? Take a look what follows the command. So what did God make on day one? Go look, what's that? It's easy. Vayer Leibtag or right a little marker here. Day one's going to be or. Day two, real simple. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And day three is, take a look. Day three, God makes Yabasha. Now, in all these 3 days, He gives out names, doesn't He? Yabasha, He calls it Aretz. And the Rakia, remember, He takes the water, the Rakia divides it. The Rakia is a divider, and some of the water was almost chaos before. Tovavo. Some of the water He put up there, didn't He? So what do you call the water up there? How do you say there in Hebrew?
Sham.
So what do you call the water up there? Shamayim. And the water down below is called Yamim. What's He make on day 4? Just look at the pasuk. What's it say? Vayimar Elokim. Got the number of the days there. Yu Ma'orot. Rakia Shamayim. Ma'orot. In the Rakia. And there's only, and then they get a job. Here we give out names. I'm sorry, this was Moshe, this was Or, this was Yom, and Laila, right? He called the Or Yom and the Choy Laila. And here he goes, the first 3 days we give out names. That's for sure. I think that's all the names that God gives out. Does anyone else give names afterwards?
Adam.
Yeah. Later, Adam gives out names. Now, we'll go back to that in a minute. But God makes Ma'orot. But now we get jobs. Who gets a job now in the Ma'orot? Take a look in day 4. Does someone get a job? Right? Who gets a job? Take a look. What pasuk we have to? I guess Yudalit. In pasuk Yudalit, and the pasuk Tzelem. Vayasvim et shnei Ma'orot hagdolim. The Ma'or Gadol, the Mishalat Hayom, the Ma'or Katan, the Mishalat Halayla. What's Mimshala mean? To be in charge. So who's in charge of the day? The sun. And who's in charge of the night? The moon. Now, one of the questions I always have here is, why does God give us the sun during the day when it's light out? It's like a big waste. Wouldn't it make more sense to put the sun at night? That's not a funny question. It's a good question, isn't it? Why is it a good question? In day 1, there's already day and night. That we know from some physics class, that's thousands of years later, that the sun, the light that we have comes from the sun. But if I look at creation, there's day and there's night before there's the sun and the moon. Now I can prove, if you were for the tikkun on Yom Kippur, that's wise, it was light before there was a sun out, wasn't there? So there's daylight before there's a sun. The sun's in charge of the day, He comes a half hour late to work every day. And He leaves the office half hour late. I mean, half hour early. Doesn't He? Now, why did I make that joke? For a good reason. There's some connection between what 2 days? 1 and 4 are connected. You can't miss it. It's like obvious. Day 1 and day 4 are talking to each other. Why? Without going into that. But they're talking to each other. Now, how about day 5? What's the main thing that God makes on day 5? It's one dibur, but it makes several things. What's He make on day 5? What's it say? I'm sorry. Day 5. ישתו המים של ספר שחיה, ועוף יופף על רקיע, על הארץ, על פני רקיע השמיים. Two types of animals. Now we have what's called off, yofef, and I'll just write dagim. I didn't say dagim, but that's what it is. What we call in English fish and fowl? Fowl and fish. And what divides them? The rakia divides them. And now you're catching on, aren't you? Everyone knows. I'm sure this is well known. Day 1 parallels day 4, and day 2 parallels day 5. That's a no-brainer. You can't miss it. And to put icing on the cake, what happens on day 6? God makes animals, or I'll just write animals, or land animals. And why does that match day 3? On day 3, God makes the Yabasha, and on day 6, He makes land animals. The match is perfect, isn't it? That was real simple. Now comes the fun part. We talked about the format of every day of creation, and every day of creation has command, execution, evaluation, plus an add-on. There's one day that's very different. Anyone ever plan a wedding? What's the best day to make a wedding? What day? Why? It says Pamayim Kitov. Everyone knows that. That's not the reason why God says Kitov twice on Tuesday. Not to know when to make a wedding. He's invested in some wedding halls. But he gets most of his income from the conscience business. I'm sorry. Take a look at day 3. That's in Pasuk Dead. Yeah, where the 2 stars are. Notice on day 3, there's 2 acts of creation, aren't there? There's 2 Vayomer Elokim. There's 2 acts of creation. There's 2 commands, followed by 2 executions, followed by 2 evaluations. And therefore, on day 3, we have 3A and 3B. Got it? What happens on 3A? On 3A, God makes Yabashat Haaretz. What happens on day 3B?
Grass.
Who's from Colorado? I say grass. That's legal everywhere. But what did God make on day 3? That's how many people. What did God do? More than just grass.
Decorated.
He made vegetation, but He made death. Not death, I'm sorry. He made life. Didn't He? And that's something totally different we never had before. Up until now, we had domain. Domain, that's elements. The Big Bang theory can maybe explain that. We have elements and matter. Now we go to life forms that we've never seen before. And that's a jump even in evolution, they don't know how to explain it. Once you get those amino acids, so evolution can take over. But how to go from elements to amino acids, remember that stuff? There's a quantum leap, so I'm getting at, between 3A and 3B. This is so mad, isn't it? And it's how we happen today. It's Esev, Masriya Zera, and H3, Osepri. Remember? But you call nowadays, word Pri Adaman, word Pri Ha'etz. Remember, that's how we remember. In fact, remember what was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? Remember the Mishnah in Brachot? Why? The machlok between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim is between a comma and a colon. Because is it deshe colon, which includes Eisem Azura Zera, H3O Sepri, or is it deshe comma, Eisem Azura Zera, comma, and H3O Sepri? Understand the 3 different categories? We paskin 2 brachot, it's confusing enough with the 2. What do you mean? But the reason for the brachot, we'll see, begins here. But we have vegetation, and notice what's unique about it. Every living thing, before it dies, can reproduce itself. How's that emphasized? Asep Mazriya Zera, H3O Sepri. Now, so therefore we have the simplest life form, that's on day 3B. Is 3A and 3B connected?
Yes.
3B is very different than 3A because we have life. We go from domain to tzomea. What's domain? Not inanimate, it's a better word. Inanimate means not moving. But you know what it means. Domain and tzomea. There's a leap between them, but they're related because without the aretz, you don't have smicha. I need the land. if everything's parallel, what's bound to happen on day 6? What are we bound to have on day 6? 2 acts of creation. And sure enough, what do we find? 6A and 6B. Now what does God make at 6B? Not so fast. First he has to consult with his board members, right? And now for some reason, he goes to plural. And how is he going to make man? He's going to make Adam. Tzelem, that's the topic of the shir. Tzelem Elokim. Which means there's something special about man in Elokim. And it would be really interesting if Elokim was a key word in the Parakilna. Why was Elokim a key word in the Parakilna? What was Elokim doing day by day? He was working. Every day he was creative and he made something that didn't exist before. And now God makes, the last thing that God makes is man. In what ways did Tzelem Elokim? He's going to be creative. He's going to think about, he'll think during Shmona Esrei, maybe I'll make an airplane. Understand? Now, I'll use the Rambam's definition of what Tzelem Elokim is. In Morning of Nevuchim, that big complicated book, so if you get up to the first chapter, it's not properly. He loses you in the beginning because he gives you all these boring definitions. But his very first definition is Tzelem Elokim, because in essence, Morning of Nevuchim is a commentary on Chumash. And he says like this, he says, Tzelem Elokim, if he wants a definition, equals sigma man. Get that right? You understand the math? Sigma is the sum total. Remember that from whatever it's algebra. It's Greek. Sigma.
That's yes.
It's close to alpha. What's sigma? The sum total of something. If I take, I don't know exactly what Tzelem Elokim, but how does he define it? Whatever the difference is between man and animal, that's your Tzelem Elokim. It's sort of a negative, it's a backwards definition. What's the assumption? That there's some fundamental difference between man and animal. And what is that fundamental difference? Humans, as opposed to every other living thing, have Tzelem Elokim. Got that? What I want to suggest is, that's the main point of the story. Because what Chumash is teaching you, that even though you look like an animal, you act like an animal, be like it, not in a negative way. We're part of the animal kingdom. Because just like I can't have 3B without 3A, I can't have 6B without 6A. 6A, I need 6A to get to 6B. Man doesn't come out of nowhere. Just like plants don't come out of nowhere. They come out of the ground. And man developed from animal. You get astrological evolutionists. Now, what did God do though to man? How is man different? Man has Tzelem Elokim. Now the big question is, what do you do with that Tzelem Elokim? The last thing, after this, God finishes creating, doesn't he? Creation's over. He takes a rest. In fact, he stops. Oh, what's over now, we have what we call nature. The laws of nature. How God did it, you can learn in science. Why God did it, that's what Chumash is about. But what Chumash wants you to know is that you're different than every other thing that God created. You're different than the rest of nature. There's a unique difference between man and everything else. And that's what makes you, that's your Tzelem Elokim, which I think relates to the fact that man is super creative. Again, animals are also creative, but the jump between man and animal, I think, is a quantum leap. Just like the jump between domain to tzomea, from 6A, from 3A to 3B, is a jump between 6A and 6B. How many time-wise? A minute, one? So, you follow the point? Now what do we do with it? Everything we did now is, I think, is objective. I'll kind of explain what I mean, because it's methodology. There's objective analysis, which is how you analyze something. Why is it objective? Because I can prove it. It's true that there's 6 states of creation. It's true that there's parallel. It's true that there's differences. The next question is, once I have an objective analysis, what's the meaning of it? That's going to be subjective. So we always go from objective analysis to subjective interpretation, or what we call rabbi speech, or whatever it is, or brainwashing. You can have a beautiful structure. What does it mean? So you take whatever your hashkaf is, and you try to fit it in. Or you can try to understand what's Chumash trying to teach you. So what I want to suggest is that Chumash is teaching you something about man has to recognize that his ability to be creative is a blessing from God, and that's his godliness. and he has to do something with it. And you're supposed to be creative, and that's the key point I've learned from Yeshiva. That being Jewish means you do something with your life. The goal was not to do anything wrong. As I would always say on an Elo. Some guy said that he did a tiny steep or all Elo. He didn't say one thing. He says, that's easy. Of course you won't speak Lashon Hara if you don't open your mouth. But the goal is not to keep your mouth shut. The goal is to do things. Try to speak and not speak Lashon Hara. That's much harder. But there was a shul that had a thing. I hope I won't embarrass anybody. They had a thing, a no talking. People who signed a contract, we're not going to talk in shul. And wow, we have such a quiet. The goal of coming to shul is not to talk. If no one talks in shul, that's the goal in shul is to daven. Of course, it's not good to talk. But I don't come to shul, so I don't talk. I come to shul to daven. Now, or to learn. Now, so go back to here. If Tzelem Elokim is what we're about, creation is over, and now civilization begins. And it seems that God is entrusting his civilization to man. God made this creation. Creation's over, and I moved from creation to civilization. And now I have this Tzelem Elokim. What do I do with it? So if you want to be cute, another title for the class is how we go from creation to civilization. But now that I have man, what's man supposed to do with his creativity? Now I need revelation. Okay? I mean, they rhyme. But I think it makes sense. I need to go from creation, recognizing now that thanks to God we have civilization, and now I need some type of revelation to understand what do I do with my creativity? What does God want me to do with it? What I want to suggest is that we need to remember that God gave us that creative ability. What exactly to do with it? There's a great Ramban about doing what's Hayashar ben Hashem. He takes all the mitzvot, Vayisita Hayashar ben Hashem. It's, you want to look it up. It's in Dvarim, Perek Vav, Pasuk Yudkar, I think. Right after Shema, in chapter 6 in Dvarim. Where he says that what God wants you to do, learn all the mitzvot of Chumash, the ethical ones at least, and then extrapolate from those what God would expect you to do in any situation. God can't give you a guidebook for 24/7, but learn principles from Chumash about how to behave, and then apply them in your day-to-day life. To remember that idea, we have some beautiful customs. So what do? We need to be creative, but once a week we stop all creativity. That we know, don't we? It's not work that's forbidden on Shabbat, it's creativity that's forbidden. If you pay attention, what are the things that we don't do on Shabbat? Later we'll see explains the things in the Mishkan. If I ask myself, what's the difference between an animal and a human in day-to-day life? What are the things that that characterize the difference between an animal and man? And give me things that are obvious, that even somebody who came from Mars would notice. So if you study human life, study Homo sapiens, how they live, and compare that to animals, what are you going to notice right away? No, animals talk. What do they talk? Right? Sure, right? What? They have families, they have societies, birds flock together. What? Yeah, processed food is big, isn't it? Animals are smart. It grows, they eat it. Called hunter-gatherers. We're in Meshuggah, aren't we? Until you plant the field, until you harvest the wheat, and the wheat's not enough. Then you got to grind it, and then you got to make flour out of it, and then you got to make dough out of it until you get to that challah. That takes a long time, that challah, doesn't it? No animal in his right mind would do that. If we make the challah, they'll eat it. But they're not going to do that. Speaking of processed food, how about wine? Remember wine, making wine? An animal will drink it maybe. Might even come for a second, but he's not gonna grow grapes and squash them and put them and let them ferment and sell them. Animals talk, but they don't write down their thoughts in script and pass that down to another generation. They don't take abstract thoughts and write them down and pass that information down. But they communicate, but not the way that we do. Animals eat other animals, don't they? But what do they do? How do they eat them? They don't waste any time, do they? They eat them, and they swallow them, and that's it. What do we do first? Make a barbecue. We burn animals before we eat them. And the biggest difference is clothing, by far, isn't it? Only humans need clothing, and we make a business out of it as well. But clothing is wool. No animals need clothing, and they don't make such a big deal about it. But if I take clothing, and not to mention industry, making airplanes, making homes and houses, structures and things like that. So if you look carefully at what we just explained, those are all the classic things. Just check it out one time. Ask anybody. What are the things that differentiate man from animal? It's clothing, it's processed food, domestication of wheat, domestication of animals, and eating meat, but cooking it first, and living in a shelter and industry, basically, making furniture and things like that. There's no simple furniture that animals do, but I think that's a different league. The way man makes airplanes and things like that, animals haven't come up with it. I don't think they're 6 million years behind us. I think it's they might make a better nest or a better ant farm every couple million years, but they're not. It's in their DNA. It's not something. They're not changing the ant farm every year to different stuff. And then seeing what the other neighbors have, and we have to do a better one. So what I'm getting at is that all the things I just described are exactly all the malachot of Shabbat, aren't they? We have Sidur Lapad. Look at the Lamatet Malachot. I think we covered all of them. We said making money out of nothing. It's business. It's carrying. It's starting a company. It's moving merchandise. Ask your local businessman. But that's borderline. But all the other things, the whole process of making wheat, of making bread, from planting the wheat, the whole process of clothing, the whole process of writing, the whole process of burning animals. Because everything we do on Shabbat, everything we don't do on Shabbat, it's not just we're not working. All the malachot of Shabbat are all the things that we do that animals don't do. Because when we rest from work, when we stop creativity on Shabbat, it's not just to remember that God created me, but God created me with creativity. And I take a break once a week, because according to some people, there's a commandment to work 6 days a week. Some people say it's in the 10 Commandments. It's in Shmot, or it's Shmot and Dvarim, I think. And you're supposed to work 6 days a week, you're supposed to be creative, but I need to take a break once every 6 days to remember, to appreciate who gave me that creativity, and ask myself what to do with my creativity. In the same way, when I go to the Beit HaMikdash and remind myself about my connection to God, what I'm going to do in the Beit HaMikdash is basically a parallel of what I do at home. Because I take burnt animals. The Korban Olah is a burnt animal. I don't eat it, I give it to God. I pour wine. I present flour, bread, don't I? I light candles. I do things which all remind me of my day-to-day. I have the farmer, I have the animals that I bring. So all the things that we do in the Mishkan also remind us of what it means to be human as opposed to being an animal. And if it's going to be okay to eat an animal, that's a big question. Should we eat animals or not? That's a big question. But should I or shouldn't I? Well, what we do is we keep kosher. We do something to the animal to remember that by eating this animal, I'll remember that I'm different than an animal. So I'll do something with the blood and do something with the fat, something like that. I'll do some symbolic act to remind me of that. But the main point I want to get across is that in light of that, one of the messages of Chumash, I think, is that man constantly has to recognize he has creativity, he's supposed to be creative. What he does with his creativity, he needs a God. And as God's people, we don't only have to appreciate that he created, remembering why he created, and we have to use our creativity in a positive way, and then now pick your local hashkafa, what is doing something positive. But the very concept that you do something with your life, you're supposed to be creative, you're supposed to think out of the box, and come up with new ideas, and try to improve things. And do what's right, B'nai Hashem, and you're supposed to work 6 days a week, and one day I take a rest, think about, to appreciate not only and say thank you for what God gave me, but to appreciate what I should be doing with my creativity. I think that's one of the messages the Chumash is teaching us, and it's definitely the message I think we've learned from Yeshiva all these years, that you live a life, you're supposed to live. We're living in Olam Hazeh, and we do as much as we try our best, we fail. We learn from our mistakes. But the idea to, not just to say thank you for the fact that God gave you life, but to recognize there's a value in creativity, there's a value in being involved, there's a value in thinking and doing and learning and being involved with society. And the whole idea of taking a break to reflect on things, I think that's one of the main messages that we learn from our Rosh Yeshiva, and I think Yeshiva continues to do. And hopefully, one last statistic, because this is English here. I just found out yesterday from somebody that there's like 3,000 Bogrim Yeshiva has, or 3,000 coming today, but there's like 5,000 Bogrim. But there's like over 1,000 Bogrim who made Aliyah, who were Americans first. So there's something in the Tetel in Yeshiva that is making good. Anyway, thank you so much, and continue to have a good day.